All right, we're back with Cooking with Mrs. Ng, and I am making my all-time favorite chocolate chip cookies. Super easy, and I think they'll become a favorite in your house as well. I've got all my items out already. My lined paper with parchment paper, my lined cookie sheet with parchment paper, and I'm gonna go ahead and start to measure. My hair is out, I have my chef coat on, maybe you have an apron, and I have my hands washed. So now it just says to preheat the oven to 375. I actually put it to, it's at 425 because I'm cooking something in there now, but I'm gonna have to wait for it to cool a little before I put the cookies in. It's really important that the cookies are at the right temperature. So if I'm cooking now at 425, I'm gonna have to drop it down and wait for it to cool a little before I put these in the refrigerator, in the oven. Okay, so measure both sugars. So remember what I had talked about in the measuring video, that anytime it calls for sugar, we are referring to granulated sugar or white sugar. The nice thing about these containers is they're air sealed. I'm going to take my measuring cups, and it calls for 3/4 cup. Okay, so like we talked about when we were doing our measuring, 3/4 cup, there's many ways for you to measure it, but there's two. It could be 3 times, doing the fourth 3 times, or doing a 1/2 cup and a 1/4 cup, which equals 3/4. You would never take a cup and just wing it by taking less. I like to just go ahead and scoop to save time. Level. So that, oops, totally wrong, and that's okay. I'm not gonna restart the video because it's good for you to see how I problem solve. I meant to do the 4th, that was the 3rd. So you just dump it out, good thing I caught it. So before you dump it, make sure you're reading the right measurement. I can do 3 of those, or I can do a 1/4 a cup and a 1/2 cup. Remember, it's supposed to be heaping. This is not a recipe where you wanna skimp on sugar. It's not gonna be the right consistency if you do. So if you're gonna make a batch of homemade cookies, or if you're gonna eat a sweet, why not eat a dessert? Eat homemade. Way better than store-bought, in my opinion, of course. Okay, and we're gonna do the same thing here again. This time I'm gonna go ahead and spoon it. You'll see that, remember how we talked about, it's supposed to come out like a sand castle, but I'm going to pack it. Brown sugar is the ingredient that you pack to get the right measurement. Okay, that's a 1/2. I think it's hard to get out of that wooden one. You see that it came out all as one, so that's correct. We do one more, and you might see if you're looking up closely, that this is actually a mixture of dark brown sugar and light brown sugar. I'm not so particular about that. I just mixed it into my container, and that's fine. So you have 3/4 cup of both sugar, and notice that I'm putting things to the side as I finish, just because then it's out of the way. So it says to measure both sugars, brown sugar and white sugar, in a bowl, and then it says to add the stick of butter. So it says cream, you're gonna cream these together. Okay, so a stick of butter is a 1/2 cup. And I always do, when I'm baking, like to use unsalted. Then the salt and sugar ratio is correct. So that's 2. It does look like a lot. The good thing is, what I do is I just go ahead and I'm making these, I freeze it. Or I can put it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to bake it. So if you're having an event and you don't want to bake it yet, you want them to be nice and hot, then you can go ahead and bring them out from the fridge. So I'm going to do it kind of both ways today. All right, and now this term is referred to as creaming the butter and sugar together. I have butter on my hands, so I'm just washing my hands again. I'm going to raise it just a bit to bring it together. All right, so that's creamed. Now it says to add the egg. Remember how I was showing you guys in other recipes? I always like to use my spoon rest. And now I'm going to take my egg and I'm going to crack it. I'm just gonna put it right into this dry measuring cup. It doesn't really matter what you put in, but I had it out. Oops, I'm gonna see that I'm gonna get some shells in there, it looks like, so I'm gonna check it. And you'll notice how many times I have to wash my hands because I just got egg stuff all over again. So wash my hands again. I didn't quite sing the whole song. I just kind of did it like I know to do it, but I should really sing the song the whole time too, just to ensure that you do a full 60 seconds. All right, so now I'm gonna add my egg and watch the different consistency of that mixture. I'm gonna go ahead and move these to the side because they both had the eggshell and the items in it. I didn't see any eggshells. If you see something stuck, just go ahead and move it. All right, now looking ahead to our next step, it says for about 20 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to measure my flour and dry ingredients. It's important that you just don't follow a recipe and say, oh, I'll just dump everything in together. That's not what the recipe says. So we wanna make sure to follow the recipe precisely. I've made a lot of chocolate chip cookies in my time and my years because I've enjoyed baking since probably I was your age. Because my mom really used to love baking. Now that she's older, she really does not enjoy baking. She does not like being in the kitchen anymore. I think she's just done her time. So she's in her 80s, so she's done with that, and that's okay. So I still love it, and I will do it. And I'm glad to be doing all these great recipes to show you all right before Thanksgiving, because then I'm gonna have some guests, and I might as well just have it ready instead of getting overwhelmed. Then I can visit with my guests and be a good hostess. Okay, so that is a cup. Now, the recipe actually calls for 2 1/4 cups. This would be a recipe that I would not do with whole wheat. Now, some people might disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine, but I have found that whole wheat flour in cookies changes the texture of the cookies. You also don't want to use bread flour. Bread flour helps with the development of the gluten, so we don't need that in these cookies as much. I actually am going to be resourceful and use the extra that's in my bowl to fill some, and then I will go ahead and fill some more. Okay, so that is 2 1/4 cup. I'm going to dump the rest in here. Put that to the side. All right, now, going back to my recipe again, I am going to go ahead and take my baking soda. Now, baking soda, remember, is a rising agent. It's referred to as a leavening agent. Again, I'm just gonna be resourceful and measure over something that's already dirty. Why dirty up more dishes? And I'm gonna measure a teaspoon. So a teaspoon is just like this. You'll see I'm doing a trick. I'm using the end of that little box. The box actually is open, and then it has a little side edge to kind of make it have a flat edge. Let me just show you. So I kind of just rubbed it right there, and you'll see there's nothing there. So I already leveled it. So that's a full teaspoon because that helps the cookies rise, or any quick recipe. A quick recipe is a recipe that doesn't take yeast. It has rising agents like baking soda or baking powder, but doesn't have yeast. Yeast takes a while. So there's my salt, because salt even enhances the flavor of sweet items, desserts. And then I'm just going to combine. So we creamed. Butter and sugar is always the creaming. That's the first step in cookies. And then I'm just going to mix. Now the recipe does not say to sift it, so we do not need to sift it. Okay, let's get some of these items out of the way. And then I'm going to raise it up. And I am just going to add my flour. Now I do go ahead and dump the whole thing. Some people might say to do it in 2 sections. I'm just showing you cooking with Mrs. Ng. So everyone's ways of doing things might be different, but this has worked for me, and that is what I'm showing you. I'm just putting the lids on my items, kind of getting things kind of cleaned up. while I'm waiting for this. So the trick, that's locking it. The trick in cooking in the kitchen is you're going to be dovetailing. That's another term. You're going to be doing more than one item at a time. That's what cooking incorporates. You kind of think multitask. I broke the recipes down in a simple way for you guys to follow because you're new and you're learning. But I'm just putting all my ingredients and items in here. I'm cleaning up as I go. All right, so we don't need to overcook this. Overstir it. Combining. Okay, now we're gonna lift it, and you can see how it all came together. That is perfect. I will have to be honest, I'm always honest, but this recipe, the reason why I like it is because of how it kind of comes together, and the texture of the cookies is far superior than any cookies I have made. You know, you might follow the recipes that are on the back of the bag of the back of a cookie morsel bag, and for me, I have found this to be exceptional. Now, I'm going to show you something, a little trick here I wanted to show you. I am going to kind of take, just estimating, about half of the mixture. All right, that's just telling me that my oven's ready for my other item. Okay, and I'm going to actually put, the recipe calls for a cup of chocolate chips. I actually did a half of chocolate chips, a half of butterscotch. I did a half of chips. If you think that's too many, you can reduce it. And I also, since we don't have any nut allergies, I'm just going to put some walnuts in there and some walnuts in here. Now, having those measured ahead of time is called mise en place, everything in its place, which makes it a lot easier to do. I'm gonna go turn off that timer real quick. All right, sorry guys. Real life cooking here. I need to get that out. So now I'm going to mix it. I love having my smiley face measuring spoon. It's one of my things that make me happy in the kitchen. If you love cooking, or you have somebody that enjoys cooking, it is nice to get them some fun Christmas items. Or not Christmas, sorry, some fun kitchen items. If you don't celebrate Christmas, then you can get anything for gifts. But it is something fun to think of your family members that might enjoy it. I know one of my friends has a daughter that's getting married, and I am going to buy her a bunch of kitchen supplies because I think that those are my favorite things, and I know she enjoys cooking in the kitchen. The little things that make you happy. All right, so I'm stirring. So I'm making half as butterscotch and half as chocolate chips. And I did put walnuts, but obviously if you have allergies, don't put it. Now, if you have egg allergies or gluten allergies, you obviously will have to look for another recipe because this is not something that is allergy friendly. Okay, so then you have your two mixtures. Now, the nice thing about this, I just want to share with you guys, is if you decide, I'm going to tilt that just a sec, if you decide to make these ahead of time, I could just take these right now, but I want to show you, and I could put these in an airtight storage container, and I could save it for when I want to make them fresh. You know how you go to the store and you buy cookie dough already finished? My hands are washed, so it's okay. You can do that, and you can store it. We used to do that when we would go to the beach. Instead of having to, because we rented a house, or we were going to my dad's house, which didn't have everything in it, the flour and stuff, because we rent it. I would not want to buy flour and sugar and baking soda, all that stuff, or bring it. So I would make batches of these, stick it in the refrigerator or even the freezer. The freezer is even better if you're going to go on a long trip, because the Outer Banks is about 6 hours from here, so it's kind of longer, especially in the summer. And then we would bring these out when we wanted to cook it, and then you wouldn't have to go to the store and buy all those different ingredients. You're kind of thinking ahead, which is something I always like to do. Now I'm going to go ahead and just bake them just because I have it available. It's on, the oven's on. I did just get my family's frozen pizza out. That's what they like. I don't, of course, being a class teacher, I would prefer to make it, but since I'm doing cooking videos, I didn't have time to do that. So they put that in the oven, and I need to drop the temperature from 425 to 375. So I'm gonna have to give it a good half an hour or so just to, I know I'm off my parchment paper, but that's okay. The parchment paper, just remember, not wax paper, is resistant in the heat, in the high heat of the oven, and it also makes cleaning up a lot easier. Okay, so I actually don't know how many this said. My recipe doesn't say how many it yields. I think it depends on how many baking sheets and items you put out. Now I'm gonna actually just go ahead and grab it. I kind of grabbed it with my pinky, less used, but I should have washed my hands another time. And I'm going to line this with another one, and I am going to continue doing my... Okay, so I just wanted to show that I had made
cookies.
I will be back.
Butterscotch
And
wash my hands and go
and then
keep
I
doing
also
those,
just
the
circular
circular balls
and
for
put the date on it with the freezer tape, so that and I just kept it in the package so you guys could see freezer tape, and then that's labeled and can go in the freezer and stay fresh until I need it. And then these are just going to go in the oven at 375 for 8 to 10 minutes, and it says switching racks after 4. So I'm going to set the timer for 4 or 5, and then switch it, and I will be back to show you the finished product. Okay, so they are done now. I got them out of the oven, and I am just going to, I have it on the cooling rack, so the air is going to circulate around the cooling rack. I'm going to take my cookies from my pancake turner, or spatula turner, some people call it, and I would just put it on a nice looking plate like this. You can also, I like to leave it just real life, is put it on the stovetop, because then it's not hot. It still has the air that circulates around it. And then you can put your your cookies on the cooling rack for just a few minutes. When I first got it out of the oven, it looked like they were they could have used more cooking, but obviously as it now hardens, it is actually still cooking while it cools. It is cooking on the baking sheet because of the internal heat. That's called standing time. That's when you want to allow it to sit for a few minutes just to let it continue cooking. Here's another cooling rack I have. I will put the last 2 on there, and then from there, after it cools, you are to put it on the serving tray. All right, so enjoy. I can't see you guys, but signing off with Mrs. Ng. Enjoy your cookies.